And now I have the real pleasure to zoom across the big ocean to Charlotte, North Carolina, and say hello to Calvin Stovall. He's the originator of the Iconic framework. He's an accomplished hotelier after 10 years plus with Hilton. He has worked in the NPO field. He's passionate about service, SRE, and he's a public speaker, and he's our guest today. Calvin, nice to have you with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Nils. I'm excited to be here. Very excited to be here.
You say over there it is warmer than it is here, because I'm sitting in the tip of Africa and it's cold, and you're over there and you say it's warm.
Yeah, it's like 90 degrees here, so it's pretty hot. It's pretty hot.
Whatever that means in centigrade.
Well, yesterday it was like we hit 100. I mean, I was like, wow. Yeah, it got pretty hot here. Yeah.
Let's stay with hot. What is Iconic framework? What do you guys do?
Well, Iconic framework is something that I've come up with. You know, as you mentioned, Nils, I've been in the hotel industry for a very long time, and always have loved brands that have been able to stand out and do things that other brands couldn't. And so I actually just looked at some of the things that some of these successful brands have been able to do, and some of the things they focus on to continue to have longevity, because I'm all about staying out there in the marketplace and making sure that you're creating something customers love. So I've come up with these things that I call the 4 Ps of iconicity. I know iconicity is a pretty hard word to pronounce, but these 4 Ps are: 1 is purpose, 1 is people, 1 is passion, and 1 is perseverance. And I think those 4 things, you have to have all 4. Of course, depending on the situation, you may pull one lever more than the other, but I think you got to have all 4 of those to be a successful and iconic brand.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things I talk about when I talk to my audiences.
Great. Well, thank you for that intro into Iconic framework. We're going through something which I don't want to call it iconic, but it certainly is horrific. It certainly is something that has stopped has stopped life like we knew it, has stopped business like we knew it. COVID-19, a name, a term that we didn't know a few months ago. We haven't heard of it, and now it's affecting all of us. How has it affected you? How has it affected the people that you work with?
Well, I think it's affected a lot of us. I think most of us actually. Most of us are working from home. A lot of us are, and having to be able to pivot how we're typically used to working in an office. Some of us are at home with children, now having to homeschool. I have 2 little boys myself, and it can be challenging trying to work, stay focused, making sure that your family is doing well. Some people are more affected by family members and things of that nature. And if you're a leader, particularly in the service industry, it can become even more challenging because you have a remote team and you want to make sure they have the tools and resources to do what they need to do, and because they have to continue to deliver the service that your brand expects. So, I mean, I just think there's a lot of challenges depending on, where you sit in the hotel industry. But, we used to lose customers before, if you did something wrong within your, maybe you didn't serve them properly or didn't meet expectations, and your customers, if you weren't able to turn it around, they left. But now we have this invisible black swan thing called COVID. And so people are not, able to stay with you for particular reasons, and then you're losing customers because they can't come and stay. If you're in that industry where people are used to coming to, like a hotel, it's difficult. I mean, your bottom line is going to be affected. So I think there's different strategies now that hotels need to have, and I'm talking outside of just the basic things like cleanliness and making sure you're doing those things and keeping your hotel clean, because people are going to be looking for those things. But I also think I call those tickets to the ball game. I think to even stay in the game, you have to make sure you're doing those efforts and being proactive about making sure people are social distancing and all of those things to keep them safe. But if you want to be, like I call, iconic, you have to have some different strategies to do that. And that's what I like to call just going above and beyond. And we can talk more about that in a sec.
Now, we talk about tickets to the ball game. At the moment, the ball has been taken away from us. We can't go to the game to speak with to keep with that idea. Many hotels are closed. People are not traveling. Yet we need to look after clients. We call them guests in our industry that are not our guests right now. So we need to look after them while they are away, while they're distant. We need to maintain touch with them to make sure that they come back to us when they can travel again. What are your thoughts on that, and how are you bringing that across to the people that you work with and work for to help them to maintain that iconic status in a time which is completely messed up, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. You know what, Nils? That's a great question. And what I have been really focusing on sharing with people is I think it's back to the basics now. I think it's now customer service is going to be a differentiator today. I think it's you want to create an effortless, seamless experience for people because people are now having to deal with situations. It's a high stress, high anxiety situations that they're dealing with today. And if anything that you can do to create a frictionless experience for that customer is better, because now people are they're having to book restaurant reservations online now. They're having to go curbside. All of these things having to change flights, and anything that you can do to create that frictionless experience is going to set you apart. Because I actually recently saw a study by an organization called Customer, and that's with a K. So they did this study, and I believe it was 150 customer service professionals that they spoke with and talked about now what is going to be most important in delivering experiences for customers. And in the top, I'm going to give you the top 5. Number 1 was empathetic service. Second was personalized service. Third was quick service, flexible service, and proactive outreach. And I think all of those things are going to be critical, particularly the empathy part, because, probably before COVID hit, empathy probably was on the list, but probably not number 1.
No.
And so I think now you're probably having to deal with more customer situations, and employees are they're dealing with it too, because they've had to learn new policies that have been put in place and a lot of things of that nature. So when you're talking to customers now, which I look at as an opportunity, yes, you're going to have a problem to deal with the customer and helping resolve that. But you also, as a brand representative or a brand ambassador is what I like to call, you have an opportunity to build a better relationship with that customer. Knowing that they're dealing with a high stress, high anxiety situation, you can talk to them, have more rapport with them, and try to build and strengthen that relationship that customer has with you. So I think that's what I said, the customer service, the frictionless experience that you create and building a relationship with them is going to be key, because when things do turn around, they're going to remember the brands that were in the trenches with them, and not fought against them when they were dealing with this situation. So I talk a lot about that.
Yeah, I mean, I had an experience yesterday in a coffee shop where I was given bad service, and I thought to myself, you need me as a customer now more than you ever needed me, and I need that coffee.
Absolutely.
And that good coffee more than I needed it for a long time, and it fell short. And it's a place that I've been to regularly in the past, and so now I think twice whether I would stop there again or just go to the next one. So I think that it really is now is the moment where you build that loyalty, because you mentioned the stresses that people are under, the anxieties, which of course the staff also have. And I think
yes, exactly.
Customers, we must not forget that. But at the same time, when I go in as a customer, I want to have that seamless experience. And I think you're spot on there when you say that now is the time to really make those friends for times when times are getting better, because they will be for sure very much more competitive. Won't they?
Absolutely.
I mean, when we emerge out of this, everybody wants that custom of those few people that are around and wants to get it quickly in order to ramp up again. What is this time teaching you? Is there anything, if you had to, and let's hope that in a year's time we can say, or in 2 years' time, well, let's say a year's time, that we can look back and say, gee, that was awful, but I've taken that positive note with me and keep that. What would that be in the life of Calvin Stovall? What is it that you say, yeah, that is something positive I took out of COVID?
I think I'm gonna say 2 things, and the first one is I think what it taught me is that you can't rest on your laurels and become complacent. I think all of us have been impacted by this in some form or fashion, and I don't want to say, but you do get a little comfortable, and I think what COVID has done is it kind of give you like, hey, I really value my customers. I'm sure a lot of people miss the revenue and things that came with all of that, but I do believe that now is the time for you to be proactive. Now is the time you reach out to your customers now and find out what you can do to help them. My learning one of the things I've learned is to, first of all, appreciate your customers and be a little bit more proactive and reaching out to them first, as opposed to sitting back and wait for them to come to you. I think now is the time to do that and talk to them and bring value. I believe you get value when you give value. And I think what some of these, or a lot of organizations have not caught on to that. You know, they're saying, get COVID, a lot of COVID messages and things like that. I think people are get a little bit tired of hearing that same message. But if you come and bring in something more positive, people love to talk about themselves. And so if you're a brand out there trying to build relationships with customers, one of the things you want to make sure and do, talk about how you can help them. Bring some value-based communications to your customers. And so once you do that, again, building the relationship. So the first thing I want to say I learned is you want to strengthen the relationship with your customers, because when this is over, again, they're going to remember the brands that cared about them versus the money.
Yeah. Now that's what we're also trying to do with the series that we've done now for the last few months in conversation with, to have conversations rather than a checklist of you must do this, you must do this, you must do this.
Yes.
It is about people, it is about communication, it's about talking to one another, and also often listening to find out what is the client really after and what does he need right now. Calvin, I wish I could speak longer to you, because it really is great, and I look forward to staying in touch. But unfortunately, our time is up. Thank you so much. All the best. Stay cool in the heat out there. And
I will.
All the very best. And let's hope that we meet face to face when this whole thing is over and we're allowed to travel again and everything is open up again. Calvin Stovall, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
Bye-bye.
Bye.